This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City head back to the Five Boroughs to take on Toronto FC. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Matty Lawrence. How you doing? I'm Glenn Crooks. We've got your live commentary coming up at 7:15 with a pregame show, and then that'll be followed by what happens in the play-by-play and the analyzing department beginning at 7:40 with the kickoff. Of course, that's if everything goes well weather-wise. So we don't have a prediction on that except our favorite little Doppler off the phone. Matty, I always rely on your service.
For everything. Yeah.
For everything, yes. Yeah, for everything. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm expecting an absolute firecracker of a game here. Let's hope the thunderstorms hold off, Glenn. But as you showed us with that excellent view just previously, it's not looking very nice out there right now. We have had quite a bit of rain, but that's it.
That's quite a picture, actually.
It is.
It's beautiful, the way the clouds are
formed. It's pretty impressive. But we have been told as well by our ground operations crew that they think we've escaped now. So let's hope the game gets underway, because I know, what was it when we did the NYCFC Pumas game at Red Bull Arena, which is now the Sports Illustrated Stadium. I think we were on air for about 6 hours. I think we're about 50 minutes shy, though, weren't we, of the Guinness Book of Records? So
we were. There was a broadcast in Japan that stayed on the air for like 8 hours or something. So we got beat by the Japanese. But then, what are you going to do? We respect what they've done for us on the technical side anyway. Yes. So they deserve to have the radio award, if you ask me. But anyway, I have no idea what that means.
No, me neither. But anyway, you roll with it.
It probably came across as insulting. Didn't mean to. But when what's interesting about this weather, okay, is and before we get to the game and Matt Freese and Alonso Martinez at the Gold Cup, and then some tragic news that came out of the soccer community today, and we're going to review that near the end of the show here. But reading this article in The Guardian regarding weather as it pertains to the Club World Cup and Gold Cup, Club World Cup in particular, 6 games have been delayed by significant periods. For instance, Chelsea, their match against Tunis. What was the team that they were playing where they had all kinds of issues? ES Tunis. It took 4 hours and 39 minutes or something.
Yeah, sorry, I was no help there. I haven't watched a single game of the Club World Cup.
Well, you watched one.
I did watch one. So
you broadcasted that game, yeah.
But that was the only one.
But what was interesting is that somebody in The Guardian did some research and was talking about, because all the discussion now is for the World Cup next summer.
Yes, of course.
And, what kind of impact the weather's going to have on that. And by the way, New York is now considered subtropical climate due to climate change. I don't know if you read that. But anyway, that in 1994, that's the hottest World Cup on record. It was here in the United States.
I was here in the United States.
It was here in the United States. Yep. But not one game was postponed or delayed. And you know what they said? It's because we didn't have Matt Lawrence being able to go on his phone, get on the Doppler, and see the exact nature of what was coming in. Now, it's certainly, I would say, safer to take these precautions, but it wasn't available then, so we didn't know if the storm was going to hit or not, so you started the game.
Yes.
It's interesting, right?
I do think that sometimes we're a little overly cautious, but also I do understand the wonderful litigious nature of the United States. So you wouldn't want to be an owner of a stadium, or FIFA for that matter, if somebody got hit by lightning anywhere around the stadium, or in the concourse. So yes, I do understand it, but sometimes, certainly, I think, was it the Chelsea game when the players were looking up and it was sun. All they could see was sun, and it was like 8 or 9 miles away, which I know is the specific distance, isn't it? I think it's 8 miles if there's a thunderstorm,
and then these lightning detectors, and then
within
the
8 miles.
So
sometimes it's a bit silly.
But here's a discussion further now about the World Cup next summer. Because I haven't set kickoff times yet.
Yeah, I saw that.
So would there be a consideration of going in the morning, like 9 a.m.? Because right now it's 3, 6, and 9 p.m. is Eastern time.
Yes.
Now 9 a.m. would make it easier for those in Europe.
Certainly,
right, to watch the games. But
probably not so fun elsewhere in the world.
How about the player? You're the player, right? You
I
are
would
a player.
Not want to be.
So you'd have to.
When would you? In the morning.
Well, yeah, because your pregame meal would be
at
the very
5
latest.
o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I was always anywhere between 3.5 and 4 hours before. So yes, would I want a game to kick off at 9 o'clock in the morning? Absolutely not. What we used to when I used to play, the earliest kickoff time we'd have was sort of 12:30, I think, just obviously a half an hour after noon, and even that was a struggle in terms of sleeping properly and eating. You'd have to get used to it. You'd certainly have to get acclimatized to that, Glenn.
Yeah.
I don't think any footballer would want to play a game at 9 o'clock in the morning.
I just remember during COVID when they had the July games in Orlando, they kicked those off at 10 a.m. And I remember talking to Ronnie Dyla during that period of time, and it was just very difficult for the players to be prepared to go. It was the right thing to do, perhaps, because of how humid and hot it was going to be. But all the games kicked off at either, I think it was 10 a.m. or 8 p.m., none in between.
Yeah, I know it was difficult because it was COVID times. So there's nobody in the ground, but I do remember those, and they didn't really get going to the second half. And that's what I was about to say. The games I played in that started at 12:30, it would always take 15 or 20 minutes for players to really get into the game. Of course, it's the same for both sets of players, so there isn't a problem with it in that sense, but certainly nutritionally and getting the right amount of sleep in it, it's going to be very, very difficult if you kick things off that early.
So we'll see what they come up with. The other discussion is, let's move everything into a dome. Now, that's not going to happen because the venues have been set. The cities have been working on the organization of all this. So if you happen to be at a stadium that doesn't have a dome, they're not going to move it out of there. But, what was it? One of the coaches, I'm trying to remember who it was now, is let's see.
Well, certainly Maresca, the Chelsea coach,
I think it was Maresca.
But
he was talking about maybe it shouldn't be held here, something to that effect, which of course can't change anyway.
No, it can't.
But we appreciate all of you that are joining us here. Let's take another look at the sky. We're at Yankee Stadium. It's a standalone Thursday night football in Major League Soccer. New York City is playing host to Toronto FC. Yes, that sky looks threatening, and it is. We'll see what happens. These things blow over sometimes, but between 7 and 9 o'clock, there's an expectation that we could have a thunderstorm. Now, what we will do and what we are planning to do, both here and then when we start our live commentary at 7:15 on the New York City FC Network, we will stay with you. I have about 6 hours of previous interviews lined up. I've got Matt Freese, I've got Diego Luna, Patrick Agyemang, Bruce Arena. I mean, there's some good ones here that we could play if we need to. Hopefully, we'll just be calling the game.
Yeah, I hope the game, again, for the players' point of view, I hope that if they come out and the game starts, I hope the game can finish in that 90 minutes, because it's not a great deal of fun going back into the locker room and trying to stay warm and not
more importantly, I have a golf day tomorrow morning, and I don't want to get in too late. You know what I'm saying?
Got that. I'm driving to, my girlfriend's driving to Newport, so we've got a long drive tomorrow. So yeah.
Hey, listen.
Hold off, weather. Hold off.
Sometimes it becomes a selfish venture here. All right, let's get to we are going to get to the U.S. men's national team. Matt Freese, Alonso Martinez, the Costa Rica-USA battle in a moment, because it was, an interesting time for us and all those who either cover or support or are fans of the New York City Football Club. But let's go to the bad news first. CF Montreal won, New York City nothing. Now,
twice.
Yeah, it happened twice, but this time it happened with Pascal Janssen away on personal matters. He addressed it a bit in his presser and with me on the pregame show. Again, that'll come up at 7:15, about 12 minutes with Pascal. And I spoke for you and for all my colleagues that we were just happy that he was back and hoping that whatever the issue was, that it had been resolved in a positive way. And he said thank you, and he basically said he wouldn't have come back here if it hadn't been resolved, and that family comes first.
Yes.
So it's good to hear him say that on a number of levels. Then we got to the football. So he's in Europe watching this game, as it turns out, on the Apple television feed. So he's in communication with the analysts. That's who. So but the Apple TV feed, I don't know if you ever noticed watching it, and tonight you need to sync up with the English Hometown Radio commentary. That's us. You can do that on the app, lower right-hand corner, whether you're on the computer or on your big screen at home. But it's 90 seconds to 2 minutes behind. So he's communicating with the analysts, but he's actually not seeing things as they happen. That's a bit of a challenge, right? That's a bit of a challenge. But
it's a massive challenge.
He was heavily involved in the training leading up to it as well. He wasn't there during the week leading up to the Montreal game. And then, in essence, they have a dud. And first, let's replay the goal, Matty, for Montreal. And then there'll be one other action by Tomas Romero, who is in goal tonight for his third consecutive start in place of Matt Freese, who is with the U.S. men's national team. But this is from the New York City FC radio network. CF Montreal playing host to New York City FC.
And here's Sealy with the left foot. Save Romero. Top of the box. It's a 1-0 lead for CF Montreal, followed by Victor Loturi. Romero went down to his right, but he palmed it right in front of goal, top of the area, and Loturi came flying in for the first-time finish.
I don't like this. I don't like goalkeepers offering up a rebound in the middle of the goal, Glenn. I know it was quite a well-palmed away save or parry from Romero, but it's in the middle of the goal. And if he's not going to catch it, you parry it behind for a corner kick, Glenn. Nice soft hands, and you tip it round the post. The minute you offer up a rebound in the middle of the goal, there is a chance that somebody's just going to then slot it home.
Curling ball towards the back post, and with a top hand, Tomas Romero, he just palms it out the other side, and now a very severe angle shot by Dante Sealy. Really never had a chance as Romero had the near post covered. He scoops it up.
Yeah, really for Romero, a solid effort with the exception of the rebound. But Pascal Janssen explained it a little differently. He said, yes, in front of the goal, but the second line, like he got it out past the penalty spot to the top of the area. Still not favorable, but he was more concerned with the fact that it wasn't defended properly by the rest of the crew.
Yes, certainly. But it was palmed away so quickly that there's very little time for people to react, because it went straight to the feet of the opposition, which was unfortunate. But yes, I could absolutely get behind that as well. But the first point is, if the ball is tipped behind the goal for a corner kick, then that's the end of that. The ball's out of play, and then you defend the corner. So, there's differing opinions on that, but I stand by the fact if the goalkeeper tips it round the corner, round the post rather, that's the best option. And I think he could have done that as well, because it wasn't the greatest of shots in the world, that's for sure.
We're getting another look here at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx of the sky, and we're getting different reports in. What was the latest you saw there, Matty, as we continue the weather dialogue, and then we'll move a little bit more into this Montreal game?
The AccuWeather app that I've got says that there is lightning in the area, but I don't know what that means in the area, quite the distance that means. But looking also as well at the radar for the next sort of from now through for at least an hour and a half, there are storms around, but it doesn't look as though they actually come over where we are, but it just depends how close they get. So I know that's sitting on the
here's Kevin Rogers' forecast from Weather Underground's Wonder Map. I've never heard of that. Have you?
Nope, I haven't.
Well, we're gonna trust Kevin on this. Heaviest stuff passing over Jersey out through the Narrows. Fingers crossed. Okay, good. 7:40 p.m. is the scheduled kickoff time. Our airtime is 7:15. All right, so back to let's hear from Pascal Janssen about this goal and how he described a moment in training. He only had one training day with the team. Check that, 2 training days with the team. Flew back into JFK just before Wednesday morning, and was at Wednesday's training and Tuesday's training and Wednesday's training. Forgive me. I've lost track. This Thursday
It's Thursday
football is killing me. It's killing me. But here's what Pascal said.
Every match that you play will give you new lessons, but lessons learned are things we're trying to achieve with each other in order to bring that to a higher level. And like I said just now, this was one of the moments in this game that we were not aware of what we normally do. And today in training, I also addressed to the guys, there was one situation where I enforced a similar situation like we had with this goal. And within 3 seconds, everybody was back in position like they normally are. And I'm like, okay, so what is the problem then? Because you understand, we've been doing this for the past 6 months, So understand this, we can never, ever accept this type of behavior. You can lose a game, that is part of the game, but not like that. This is part of the game that is not allowed to happen to us anymore.
Well, part of the inconsistency this year are moments like that, but that's as firm as I've heard him speak about it. And maybe it's because he was away and trusted that they might even be more disciplined, knowing that Matty Belushi was in what you might say a tough spot as the interim coach for a day.
Look, it was a tough spot, and we continue to say it, and we continue to say it till we're blue in the face. This team is incredibly inconsistent, and it's mental lapses time after time after time. And any old manager I ever had, Glenn, said that, if you didn't learn by your mistakes, you'd be out on your ear. Well, if that was the case here, that half the team wouldn't be here, because it's the same problems over and over again. And it's happened twice now against Montreal, who are the worst team in MLS, who have only won 3 games this season, and 2 of them have been against NYCFC. They conceded 36 goals in 18 games this season, 2 goals per game, but none in 2 games against NYCFC. It doesn't get any clearer than that. We don't need to look at performances. It's right there. That they can't beat the worst team in MLS, and it's happened home and away. It's a big problem for this team, who the proof is in the pudding. It is mentally weak and incredibly inconsistent.
And Matty Belushi, this was his first professional head coaching match, his debut, and it's a one-off for him for now, as Pascal has returned as he had hoped and as everyone had hoped. But here was Matty, who obviously a bit disappointed after the game.
The reality of tonight is we showed up a little bit late to the party, because our first half an hour or so was a little sluggish. That's in and out of possession. We didn't have the right intensity. Took half time for us to kind of get going again. The second half was much better. We had control. We were in the final third, and we just lacked the last little play or the last pass or clever pass and the right type of crosses and finishing.
That's Matty Belushi, assistant coach, New York City FC. So the loss to Montreal, a difficult one to be sure. And now it's another Canadian side that certainly hasn't been tearing it up. Just 4 wins on this season. However, Matty, they're unbeaten in their last 3. They have 3 draws on the road in their most recent road performances. Their only win ever in the New York metropolitan area actually was in New Jersey at Red Bull Arena on September 23rd, 2020. They beat New York City 1-0 during the COVID campaign. So now the big story here is the Italian DPs. Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi. The club announced that they had mutually agreed to terminate the contracts of both DPs, who this year had 23% of the goals, 41% of the assists, and 62% of the salary. There's a lot of wages that are now available for Toronto, 2 DP spots, and about $22 million. What do you think?
Well,
I'm going to read something from Charles Boehm's story with Robin Fraser, the head coach.
I'm pretty sure that most people knew exactly where those 2 signings were going before they even showed up. If anybody had done their due diligence, the 2 players themselves didn't particularly get on with each other. That was a big problem. And to pay people that massive amount more than the rest of your team is always going to breed jealousy, unless those players show up and they're good people in the dressing room and they're producing the numbers on the pitch. But they did neither. They certainly, the way I saw them conduct themselves on the field, obviously I don't know the training ground, but conduct themselves on the field, and heard big rumours of how they conducted themselves in the dressing room. They're an absolute disgrace to the profession. And they, of course, happy to take the money, but they didn't try a leg, Glenn. They didn't try a leg. We watched them play numerous times. And the only
will say in our commentary in the first game this year, which New York City
was a bit better.
Yeah, you complimented him for his effort, which is the first time since he's arrived. It's his third season.
He's been here 3 seasons, exactly. Normally, they did not run unless they had the ball. If you're Lionel Messi, which is what he does, you can do that because you're Lionel Messi and he still produces. He only tries on one side of the ball and he works hard. That's fair enough. He's one of the best ever, if not the best ever. But Bernardeschi and Insigne aren't that good. And they look like they were horrible teammates, to be honest. There was a lot of waving their arms around, a lot of shouting at other people and not producing themselves either, Glenn. They were poor. They are incredibly talented players. They're Italian internationals, played for some of the best teams in Serie A, producing big numbers, not only for the national team, but in Serie A, one of the toughest leagues to score goals in. Certainly defensively, it's very good. And they didn't struggle, but they came here to MLS and they didn't try a leg, as I say. It was not fun to watch.
Well, here's the quote from Robin Fraser in the MLSsoccer.com article written by Charles Boehm. Charlie is one of the top writers in American soccer. Here's the quote. I think if the salaries are closer to being in line with the rest of the group or even the rest of the league, I think it builds more of a team feeling. And that's the thing that's really important, is being able to make sure that the team functions as a team. It's something I talk about all the time. This is Fraser continuing. This is a club that has historically spent money, and certainly the last time I was here, he was an assistant under Greg Vanny, a fair amount of money was spent. Yes, there was on Giovinco, Bradley, and Altidore, and but we got great results.
Yes.
That's his point. And the key is that whatever we do in terms of spending, we need to bring people who are going to continue to enhance the team feeling. And just by the disparity of salaries alone, there could be a sense of a great division within the team. So that's a pretty plain spoken as to what the issue was.
Yeah, I think certainly I played with players who earned a lot more money than me. I was a lowly defender, Glenn, so quite often the centre forward would earn a lot more money. I
saw you do an underlap recently on a video I watched of you. You're an attacking maven.
Okay.
Yeah,
look,
but go ahead.
We could always accept the centre forward earning a load more money as long as they were a good teammate and they produced and they weren't selfish, in and around the dressing room. I've just written it in my notes here. I've written Robin Fraser has to develop a team with a work ethic, a willingness to metaphorically die for each other, and a will to win. I wrote this knowing that Insigne and Bernardeschi had left, and that's what he's got to do. He's got to build and breed a team, a real togetherness. And with people like Bernardeschi and Insigne, that was never going to happen. They were more of a hindrance than a help, Glenn, in many, many ways. And that is part of the reason why this team now, in my opinion, this team is unbeaten in the last 3. You said they just won their last game, 3-0 against
3-0 against Portland.
And who scored those goals?
Portland had just one loss in their previous 7 road games.
But who scored those goals? Two kids out of university,
college kids, right?
And one own goal, which was very close to being a goal by DeAndre Kerr, who was right there and forced the own goal. Another kid, him out of Syracuse University. So it just goes to show you don't need to pay players exorbitant amounts of money, as long as you get the right people with the right work ethic and obviously the right talent as well. There was zero, I would say, due diligence done on bringing in Insigne and Bernardeschi in terms of their personality and what they would bring to the dressing room.
Well, New York City had a guest at training the other day. I don't know if you saw this, Matty, right in the middle there. That's Santi Rodriguez.
Yeah, they could have done with him playing. He's not playing much for Botafogo, so can we loan him back?
Well, he's an Uruguayan. He's sitting in between 2 Argentinians. There was a story today about the potential of a midfielder out of Argentina joining the fray here with New York City FC. We're not going to get too deeply dug into that until we get more information. But there's Santi. And there's even a rumor that he is in the house tonight. I don't know.
Should have got him on.
I think Roberto should have had him on the Spanish commentary.
Well, there is that, yeah.
his English is very limited, and our Spanish. How's your Spanish?
Luckily, our English is pretty limited as well, so we should fit right in.
That's true. He fits right in. All right, let's get to the USA versus Costa Rica. First of all, the U.S. men's national team with Matt Freese starting 5 consecutive games, and now will undoubtedly start the final, where the U.S. men have reached the final of the Gold Cup. They're going to play Mexico on Sunday after beating Guatemala 2-1 in what was a feisty, kind of scrappy, kind of not really well-played game. And but Matt Freese made his mark, and maybe, just maybe, and I'll get into this a little bit. I want your opinion, Matty, but maybe he made the team next summer, the World Cup team, because of what he did against Costa Rica in the penalty kick shootout. And he had 3 saves, which is not unheard of. We know that Tony Meola had 3 saves once in a tournament format way back in 2000 with Kansas City in the playoffs. We know that last playoff season for New York City in 2024, Matt Freese had 3 penalty saves against Cincinnati. That was game 3 of the opening round playoffs that advanced New York City to the next round of the MLS Cup playoffs in what was a pretty massive upset. And Freese took great responsibility there for helping New York City push on, as he did against Costa Rica. But first, the first guy he had to face was Alonso Martinez. So we're going to play this from Pascal Janssen, which includes a clip of Martinez scoring this first goal against Matty Freese. And let me make sure I pull it up correctly here. Yeah, here it is. And you have to first look closely at Alonso Martinez, his face, as he prepares to take this penalty against Freese. Here it is.
So you're watching this. What are your emotions? That's a tough moment.
Well, first of all, I was very proud to have 2 of my own boys in a match like that at a big tournament. That's a massive achievement for them both, but also very good for our club to have players at that podium. And it was, of course, a fantastic, iconic moment to have them play each other in that moment as well. And what I've heard, that they even spoke to each other briefly before going into that penalty. Because Matt obviously knows the routines of Alonso and vice versa. And I think it was Alonso who said to Matt, "I'm going to go through the middle," before he took the penalty. And Matt didn't feel really comfortable. He expected it, but he didn't feel really comfortable. So he took the side where Alonso shoots his penalties like 7 or 8 out of 10 times.
Right.
And Alonso stuck by his own word and put it down the middle. So it was great to see for them both, but I'm happy.
You got to like that interchange, right? That's fantastic. That's a part of sport. Two friends, 2 guys that know each other so well yet at that moment. Wow.
Part of the same dressing room, and both of them have great personalities. But don't get me wrong, it's always about winning and getting through. So it's still 1-0 to Matt.
Yeah, that it is. So really a wonderful moment there, and great for Freese. And the reason I say maybe he makes the team there, and there is some history here, Matty, which I needed to look up. But if you have a goalkeeper, let's just say, going in, you're the coach, that you're going in and hoping to get to the knockout stages of the World Cup next summer. We're talking about Mauricio Pochettino and the U.S. men. And if you have a goalkeeper that is by far better than your other keepers in a shootout situation, do you bring him along and consider that moment of bringing him into the game, even if he hasn't played, even if it's Zach Steffen or Matt Turner who has played that game?
I think so. It certainly depends how many goalkeepers you bring in your squad as well. Normally it's just 3.
3, yeah.
But,
so I'm going to say 3.
I think so. I think that you would consider it. The good thing for Matt Freese is that the generational talent right now of goalkeepers is limited.
Right.
There is no clear and obvious,
right,
excuse the VAR terminology, there is no clear and obvious number 1 goalkeeper in this US team. There is no Tony Meola, there is no Brad Friedel, no Casey Keller, no Tim Howard. It's a very poor bunch of goalkeepers, and predominantly they're not playing at the highest level. You've got Zach Steffen, who in my opinion is the best goalkeeper in the US right now.
Yeah.
But he's not fit. and he absolutely failed tremendously in England, whether it was for Manchester City and Middlesbrough. There was stuff going on off the field that I'm not overly sure about, but he looked a beaten man in England. He's come back and he's playing really, really well for Colorado. He's been magnificent. And I think in terms of stature and all the attributes you want for a goalkeeper, Zach Steffen is the number one goalkeeper, but he's injured. And the rest, you look at people like Horvath and Turner, and they don't really play. So Matt Freese has given himself a really good opportunity right now, because Steffen's injured. Matt Freese, in my opinion, is the number one goalkeeper in the US.
Can I say that Robin Fraser, now Sean Johnson has 5 clean sheets, 36 years old, former New York City keeper. He's having a tremendous season for Toronto because on the defensive side, conceding goals, that has not been really their number one issue.
No, it definitely isn't.
And Johnson has kept him in games. And Robin Fraser is a bit surprised that Sean Johnson isn't in the mix because, well, let's face it, 36 years old is not too old for a goalkeeper in particular, or for a center back. With Tim Ream right now is probably the best central defender that the U.S. has.
I agree. 36 is not too old. Let's not forget the World Cup's not till next year, so it'll be another year older. But I'm absolutely with you with Robin Fraser. But for whatever reason, Pochettino has decided not to go there. I don't think Sean Johnson is good enough with his feet for Pochettino.
Sure.
And we talk about it a lot. Sean Johnson offers up far too many rebounds in front of goal as well. So while I think he is a good goalkeeper, I see the reasons to be leaving him out.
All right, so that's Toronto FC. Robin Fraser's their head coach. Yep. He's a guy that's had a long history in Major League Soccer. And as he mentioned in that quote with Charles Boehm in the MLSsoccer.com article, he'd been in Toronto before as an assistant, had great success there, 17 years as a player in MLS, and now he will guide Toronto against New York City FC here in the Bronx. We've been monitoring the weather. There was a tarp on the field about an hour ago as it was raining pretty heavily. The rain left, the clouds came in even darker, but now it's, as you can see, if you've been with us from start to finish, the clouds seem to be pushing out, but there still is a possibility in the forecast between 7, now we're at 7:02 Eastern, and 9 o'clock for some showers, maybe even some thunder showers. Matty, we're going to close, and I'm going to defer to you on some of this. Although anybody in the soccer community, anybody who follows the game, anybody who has children close to family, I woke up at 5:30 this morning. I get these notifications on FOTMob, and that's where I saw Diogo Jota, the Liverpool striker, was killed in a car accident with his brother, Andre, who is a second division player in Portugal. And Diogo had gotten married the weekend before. He has 3 children, and it's one of those things where you pause for a moment and you do think maybe almost selfishly about your own family. The fact, how much time do we spend in a car, and driving, and it's always said that, if an airplane goes down, it's a massive story, and we understand why, but flying is so much safer than driving. It's statistically proven, and all these miles that we put in. And then you sent me something today, which was, took it to another level, that the only reason they were in a car is because he had some sort of a procedure.
Yeah, he just had a surgery, and the doctors advised him not to fly, that it wouldn't be wise. I think it increases the risk of deep vein thrombosis. As far as I'm aware, I'm not a medic, but yes, he had been advised not to fly. I think his family, and again, I'm speculating a little bit.
Sure.
I think his family had flown back to Liverpool, and his wife had taken the kids, and he was driving with his brother to the ferry to catch a ferry from the north of Spain up to the south coast of England, and then he would then drive on or take a train, obviously, up from the south coast up to the northwest, up to Liverpool. And yes, I woke up not at 5:30, but not far after you, Glenn, and it was shocking to read. It's always shocking to hear of anybody dying, but let alone when it's a 28 and a 25 or 26-year-old and 2 brothers. So it leaves, elder parents who've lost both siblings, or certainly at least 2 of their siblings, and it leaves, 3 very small children without a father, and a newly married woman without her her husband, and without a partner of many, many years. I've since done more research. They met at high school sweethearts, and lots of people after a death, they will always say nice things about people because that's the way we are, that's the way humanity is. But the things that I've read about Diogo Jota, even before he passed away, and then were exacerbated by the comments I read after his passing, he's just was an absolutely wonderful guy. Take the football out of it. He was an absolutely wonderful human being and loved by everybody up on Liverpool, up on Merseyside. He'd been there for 5 years. Prodigious talent. I watched Sky Sports News, which is the news station back in England today, and there was gatherings at Wolverhampton Wanderers Stadium because he was at Wolves before he went to Liverpool. And same there, everybody loved him. And you can tell with body language and the way people speak. It wasn't just because he passed away, people were saying that. Everybody had fallen in love with the guy because of what a wonderful human he was. Add to that the fact he's a magnificent footballer, and as was his brother. His brother played at a high level back in Portugal as well. So it was a crying shame and tragic. And to your point, Glenn, I think we all should be selfish in life, shouldn't we? Because we can only look after ourselves and our own destiny to a certain degree. And it makes you wonder how much more time you should try and spend with your own family, your own children, your own siblings and things like that. So yes, it was an absolute tragedy for not only the footballing world, Glenn, but for the world in general, because they were both incredible human beings.
Well, thanks for that, Matty. Well put. And we've got a game to broadcast, and we've got our pregame show starting in about 9 minutes. The New York City FC Network. Tonight, we're also joined by Sirius XM-FC, channel 157, and also Apple TV, MLS Season Pass, the drop-down app. You can listen to the English hometown commentary, us, while you watch the game on Apple TV. For Toronto, no changes from their 3-0 win over Portland. Why change? And for New York City, Ilinic and Aiden O'Neill back in the starting 11 for the home side here at Yankee Stadium. So for Matty, I'm Glenn. Thanks so much for joining us here on NYCFC Pregame Live. We're with you 45 minutes before kickoff each and every game, and we'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy the game, everybody.
You got tape? Thank you. Where are you headed?